Okay, we've spent enough money. Let's see if we can make a little bit of money now. What are some possible revenue streams for our event? We've talked a little bit about sponsorship, and we've made a sponsor package that we're going to give to our sponsors and go out and try to sell that package to people. Um, Sponsors are always probably your best number one uh, revenue stream. You need sponsors and you need that money up front. The reason for that, if you look at number two on the list, is ticket sales. Ticket sales are a variable. As much as you would like to think that every show and every event you do is going to be a sellout, you do not know that. You never know how many tickets you're going to sell ahead of time. So you need that sponsorship money so you can go out and spend money because you're going to have to spend a lot of money before you ever open the doors to this event. So get that sponsorship package down and go out and sell some sponsorships. Make some money. Okay, then the second one, of course, is ticket sales. Our ticket sales, now you will know what the maximum money you can get is. You'll know if you sell every single ticket that there is to sell to this event, you'll know how much money you'll have. But you don't ever know if you're going to sell every single ticket. You don't know if you're going to sell any tickets. So get that money ahead of time. Concessions are, of course, a big deal. But let me just warn you and caution you about concessions. Don't try to do it yourself. That may not be an issue because the venue that you're in may require you to use their food sellers and beverage sellers. However, if you are in a situation where you can bring in your own, then bring in the professionals. Unless you do that for a living, unless you're in the food and beverage industry or the hospitality industry, do not try to do it. Leave it to the professionals. Let them come sell. You take a percentage off the top. And let me say this about t-shirts as well. The same goes for t-shirts. Most people, many people make the mistake of trying to print t-shirts and going out and selling them for their event. And every single one of them, well, almost every single one of them, loses money on the deal. And why is that? Well, it's because they make too much stuff. I know people today who still have boxes of t shirts stored away in closets from events that happened 20 years ago. There are many people in every town in the universe that make t shirts, and they are more than happy to make them for you and to come sell them for you and to give you a percentage on top of what everything else that you make. Do that. Don't try to do it yourself. Trust me on this because if you do it, you're going to wind up in the year 2040 trying to figure out what to do with those two cases of t shirts you had left over from your 2018 event. Um, Parking, of course, is the other really big source of income. And in order to do that, you'll have to have a parking lot, and it'll have to be one that's hopefully connected to the venue that has fences around it, that has everything that you need so that it has restricted entry so you can collect a parking fee at the gate. The parking fee could also be sold in advance with Ticketmaster or whatever so that there is a ticket. At any rate, you're still collecting parking. Be sure that you have plenty of security in your parking lot because the last thing you want is for people to run around breaking into the cars, for people to get mugged, for people to get beat up in the parking lot, and damage to happen because of that. You do not want that to happen, so be sure that you have a secure parking lot and charge as much as you can get for it because that is a great source of income. The last one on this list here is VIP tickets. VIP packages can include just about anything. They could include limo rides, champagnes, hotel rooms, meals. They can include anything that you want them to include. And you don't usually have to give the band any of this because the band is getting their pay uh, up front, and the VIP tickets are something that you're just selling separately, although you might have to get their approval for it. And particularly if you're going to do a meet and greet, you will need the approval of your artist ahead of time. But VIP tickets are, as much as I don't like them, they are a good way to make extra income. So you should probably have VIP packages ready to sell. As far as other revenue streams, I'm open to anything. If you have ideas, let me know. We've talked a lot about sponsors, and let me talk about them one more time. Who are some good sponsors? Well, obviously, the number one sponsor in the universe for music events are beer companies. Beer companies love to sponsor events. Just to keep in mind that if Budweiser is a sponsor, Miller Lite's not going to be. So pick the one that you think will give you the most money and go pitch it to them first. The second biggest sponsor are casinos. If you live in an area and your event's in an area where a casino might be close by, feel free to go to the casinos and see if any of them are willing to pop on board. They love to sponsor events. They love to get their name out there any way they can. And if it's involved with people having fun, then they want to be a part of it. We all know that banks sponsor, particularly local banks. You really can't expect a national bank to come in and sponsor a local event, but there almost every town has at least one bank, usually more, that are really locally owned or at least state owned, regionally owned, and operated. And those are the banks that are likely to sponsor your event. So go see them. Keep in mind that it's the same thing with banks. If one's a sponsor, then they're probably not going to let you go to another bank and ask for sponsorship. Cell phone companies are another great one, particularly if they're local. C Spire used to sponsor a lot of events that I did. However, C Spire has kind of gone big time, and they're doing their own shows now. So I don't know if they're sponsoring events anymore, but you can always go to T-Mobile, and I doubt if AT&T will, but T-Mobile probably will. And if you're in another part of the country where there are other regional carriers similar to C Spire, I'm sure they would be happy to sponsor your event. Car dealerships always want to get in on the action too, and they'll also sometimes loan you some cars if you need vehicles to transport VIPs around, and sometimes they'll loan you even drivers, and so you don't really have to do anything, and that's always a good thing. I put radio stations and newspapers in here, and let me say that they are both good sponsor partners. However, their sponsorship is always going to be in kind, meaning that they're going to give you services instead of money. But that never hurts. A radio station who is promoting your event, even if they're not giving you any money, is great. You want radio stations to promote your event. In fact, you can just give it to one of them. If you've got one that's particularly appropriate for your event, go to that station and say, hey, you can have this event. You have to promote the hell out of it, and they will do that. They'll get on the air and they'll give away tickets and they'll talk about it, and they'll come there and they'll put up posters and give away stuff, and it's all great. You want radio stations to be involved in your event. And newspapers too. If you have a big newspaper in your area, you should get them involved. Local weekly newspapers aren't going to do much for you, simply because they don't have the resources, and if it only comes out once a week, it's not going to be of great help to you. But you never know. You should always at least give it a try. Now, a word about production. This is not income, this is expenses again. Um, Anytime you do a major league artist, they're going to bring a lot of their own stuff because that's the way shows are done now. Artists don't just go and use what you have available, they have designed their own show, and it is, along with that, includes a whole lot of equipment that they're leasing. In some instances, it's many truckloads. It can be up to a dozen or more truckloads full of production equipment, depending on who the artist is and how large they are. So always find out what they're bringing and then what they expect you as the promoter or as the venue, depending on which you are, to provide. Because in some instances, you may not have to provide anything, assuming that you have a stage already. And in some instances, they have specialized round stages or different shapes of stages that they use, and they may travel with that too. So it's conceivable that you may not have to provide anything, but what you do have to be sure is that your venue is capable of handling the requirements. It can be the electrical requirements, the weight requirements. You'll certainly have to have electricians on hand. You'll have to have a lot of things for production. So if the production is not provided by you, then the cost of that is likely going to be included in the cost of the band. They will figure out what their production cost is and what they want, and that's what your cost will be when you pay the band. You may pay a $50,000 band $150,000, and $100,000 of that is going to the production, and 50,000 of that is going to the band. So be sure that you read your rider completely, and when you're booking the band, when talking to the agent ahead of time, that's the first thing you need to find out is, do they travel with their own production? What am I expected to provide? Because production is expensive. At the very least, you're going to have to provide a bunch of stage hands to load in, and you're going to have to provide runners, and you're going to have to provide all kinds of people for them and personnel, because they won't travel with everybody that they need, but they will need you to provide something. But hopefully not too much if they're bringing all their own stuff. Promotion is not really a major part of this class because it's a major part of every other class that we teach at DMI, and I'm sure it's a part of pretty much everything that you've done in the business world. But you will need a marketing plan, and that does need to be a part of your original proposal when you send that out to your possible sponsors. And marketing plans can include a whole lot of things. In this day and age, it has to include social media and internet advertising of some shape, form, or fashion. It can also include radio, although radio is questionable as to whether it even exists or not in some places. At least radio that would reach your demographics. There's a lot of talk radio now. There's not all that much music radio anymore like there used to be. Most people carry their radios in their pocket in their phone, and it's streaming now, and there's not a lot of commercials and advertising that goes along with it. So, but you can use radio if it exists. TV is the same way. You may want to use a few specialized TV ads. TV advertising is expensive, but you'll definitely want to go on your TV's talk shows and get on those and talk about the show that you're going to do. Newspaper advertising is still effective if it's a newspaper that people actually read. Internet newspapers are not effective for advertising. I'm frankly amazed that people still advertise on internet newspapers. I know every time I open the Clarion Ledger page on my computer, it jumps around and there's ads that pop up and disappear, and I never look at a single one of them. So I don't think they're really worth doing. However, if I'm in Jackson and I read the Jackson Free Press, I read the ads, particularly the club ads and the music ads and what's going on. So my recommendation there is to use newspaper only if it's something that you think people are actually going to see. Internet newspapers are a waste of money 100% of the time. Okay, that's about it for this lecture. There is an assignment, and it's a rather lengthy one, so it will take you some time to do it. So go ahead and check that out and get started on it. And have a good spring break.